commits changing schools because of money, and you don't even know if you could get it. Like you said, they're about to change the NIL thing too soon. Uh, so it's just a lot of stuff that's happening, but I try not to think about it too much. Just go out and play.
Welcome to the Third and Central podcast, the only podcast dedicated solely to the University of Louisville baseball program. As always, this is your host, Matt Sefcovic, joined by Aaron Turner. Aaron, I know it's kind of a slow time for baseball. We haven't recorded in a while, so we do have a lot to talk about, as well as Zion Rose is joining us tonight. He's going to be the first guest to ever join the Third and podcast twice. The only guests we've ever had on multiple times. We've had coaches, we've had other media members, we've had professional baseball players, we've had a ton of minor league baseball players. Zion Rose is in elite category of just the first person to ever come on twice. And that's not by accident, because last time we had Zion join us on the podcast, we loved him. Super year last year in 2024 as a freshman. So excited to hear about what he has to say about his freshman campaign, how he prepared for his sophomore campaign as well. So all that to be said, we haven't talked in a long time on air. How is everything going out your way in St. Louis?
Doing great. Haven't recorded in a while, like you said. So hoping that I remember how to do this still, but we're gonna get the kinks out early and then get into it. How's everything out your way?
It's good. Busy time out this way. Holidays are coming up. We're doing the whole Disney thing here before too long with our son for the first time. So planning that, but had to squeak in an episode before the holidays before we go down to the Mouse's house down in Orlando. So, and honestly, we just lucked out when we were talking about this. This couldn't have been a better time to record a podcast because the schedule came out today. All right. So I think that's kind of the first thing I want to talk about, because it's hot and heavy. And that's obviously something that's very important for the season is who we're going to play. So let's go ahead and jump into that. I think obviously they start off with a bang this year down in Texas in the Shriners College Showdown. They play Texas to start the showdown down there in Arlington, and then they follow that up with Oklahoma State and Arizona. And I can't think of a better way to spend Valentine's Day this year, February 14th, other than watching Louisville take on Texas to open the baseball season. So pumped about that. ACC home games we got this year. We host North Carolina, California. That's a new one, moving over to the ACC. Boston College, Florida State, and Wake Forest. In the conference, we will travel to Virginia Tech, NC State, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Georgia Tech. I think after looking at the ACC opponents, a couple things that jump out to me is that we dodge Miami, we dodge Virginia, which is odd because since we've joined the ACC, it seems like we close the season every year with Virginia. So that's going to be odd. And we don't play Stanford, which I was kind of excited about that. First year, them as a member of the ACC as well. I was kind of pumped to see Louisville take on Stanford, but we'll have to wait at least another year for that. So we also dodged Duke, and I think Duke is going to be a really, really, really good team this year. You and I have talked about this on the podcast. We've talked about it off the podcast. I think Chris Pollard is one of the best pound-for-pound coaches in the entire country. So not playing them, I'd love to see as well. And that's not to say we don't have a tough schedule. When you look at the teams that I just listed, we play half of the College World Series teams from a season ago. And of those 4 teams, we have 11 games against College World Series opponents from last season. So I know it's a lot looking at the schedule. What are your key takeaways? Any kind of games that you've got scheduled or circled to see that you're kind of looking forward to?
I think the first thing that jumps out to me is the non-conference portion of the schedule. In the past few years, we've seen a lot of big names, but we haven't really, outside of the Shriners Classic, which those three are three massive games. But then you move away from that first weekend, then you go into weekend series with Western Michigan, St. John's, UIC, North Carolina. North Carolina is conference. All right. I'm going to run that back. And 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I think the thing that sticks out to me most is just the non-conference schedule. I think in previous years, the last 2 or 3 years, we've seen some big heavy hitters early on. Then you look at the season schedule, and you don't really see that after that first weekend. Play 3 big games down in Dallas, but then you go into a few series against Western Michigan, St. John's, UIC, with midweeks being Xavier, like always, Butler, Morehead State, Lipscomb, Oakland, and there's not a whole lot that jumps out at me right there. And so I don't want to be playing this already, but when you look to the end of the season and you think about big non-conference wins, there's really nothing there, and I don't think that we necessarily need the help because the strength of schedule will be there with ACC play, and then those games played in Dallas. But then those early games become games that you can't really afford to lose. Like last year, I think we talked a lot about one loss to St. Bonaventure kind of changes a lot of things. And, I think the quality of play is probably a little bit better than St. Bonaventure, but there's still those are games that you can't lose early on. So I just think it's interesting to no longer see it. I think we've had TCU the last couple of years. We don't really have that quality and non-conference opponent after that first weekend anymore.
Yeah, and I agree. When you're looking up and down the schedule, we don't have any of those weekend series anymore. You still got Kentucky, you still got Vandy, but like you said, those are 3 games that are a given. We know we're going to play those every single year, but it makes the games that you do play against the lower opponents that much more important, because we talked about that a lot last year. And, a couple of years ago, it became a big thing where coaches were starting to cancel games against teams against lower RPI because it was just affecting their RPI and strength of schedule so negatively that they started canceling those, which they've kind of tried to put a stop to that. But it just goes to show how important those are. So when you lose one of those games, man, the RPI points that you lose just for one game is astronomical, and it can really kill your RPI. So, in baseball, you're going to lose games. Like it's part of it. That every time you walk out between the bases, between the lines, you can lose a game. It makes them that much more important, and you really got to come out every single day with your A game, because when you're playing an opponent like Western Michigan or Oakland or somebody like that, you got a huge target on your back, and they're going to play their best game. And sometimes when you play 50 games in a season, it's easy to look across the diamond and be like, okay, it's Oakland today, we don't have to play our best. But then when they do, you can see what happens sometimes in those St. Bonaventure games, and when you drop one, what it can do to you. So, yeah, I think that's a really good point. But I think it's a tough schedule. 32 games against NCAA tournament teams from a season ago. You do have the Battle of the Barrel, like I mentioned. You've got Kentucky twice, which love to get some momentum back in that series. Just going through some of the conference series that we have, Clemson is always just a battle. Let's talk about Clemson for a second too. I'm sure you've seen it's been all over Twitter lately. They played the game against the Savannah Bananas, and I went to the Bananas when they were in Louisville earlier this year. I've talked about it quite a bit. Just what a cool experience that was. I saw the CEO and founder of the Bananas talking about that. And I think one of the videos that they posted from the Clemson game had like 32 million views. It was their most viewed video ever, I believe, the Bananas, if I remember him saying that correctly. And just think about that exposure that Clemson got off, just having the bananas there and just the outside forward thinking of that. I just thought it was a really cool environment. And it also made me think much less of myself when I saw Eric Backage, who's much older than me, take his shirt off and look like that. And then I then I get to look in the mirror every morning. So, but just a really cool experience. And I thought it was good, not only for Clemson, obviously, but I think it's really good for the game of college baseball to see the Savannah Bananas hitting the college baseball as well.
See, I was told that Eric Backage took the Matt Sefcovic workout plan. That's what I heard.
Yeah, he did. He stole it. He followed it. I obviously have not. That's the problem.
Also, side note here, I think we have to be the only freaks that are doing strength of schedule and RPI math in November.
Listen, you know that I will talk about strength of schedule and RPI all day long, and you always tell me to shut up. But I will talk as soon as the first game ends. I will look at what our strength of schedule and RPI is, and I will text you, and I'm going to tell you about it.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're going to tell me how much you hate me. And after the second game, I'm going to do the same thing, and it's going to go until every single game until the season ends.
That is exactly how every season goes.
Because that's just how it works. And I'm crazy about it, and I probably shouldn't be that early on, but I think the committee looks at that stuff so heavily, even though I think they're very outdated metrics. That's what they use, and that's what we have to. That's what programs across the country have to use to build their resume. So I follow it like it's crazy, and I will continue to do so, even though you tell me not to. So that's just my soapbox for the day.
Like I said, I didn't really want to go down that route, especially in November, and it's gonna be there. The ACC play and conference schedule later in the season is going to more than make up for whatever happens in March. So I don't want to be that guy, but somehow I was anyways. Anyways, going to move on here to the Pizza Bowl. For those who might be unfamiliar, the annual Pizza Bowl took place over the last few weeks. It's an inter-squad scrimmage where they split off into a couple teams. This year they split off into the red team and black team. The red team won this year's series in 6 games. I just want to run through some of the highlights that I found kind of interesting here. Patrick Forbes started a couple games, and his lines were phenomenal. And his first start had 5 innings pitched, no runs, no hits, 6 strikeouts. And second start of the Pizza Bowl series, Forbes went 4 innings, allowed 1 hit, 1 run, and struck out 6. So the guy that we've kind of talked about over the last few months, this guy is probably your ace. He showed it during the Pizza Bowl, and I think that it's really good to see Patrick starting to do that. We've seen a lot of glimpses of this guy could be really freaking good, and sometimes it clicks, sometimes not quite sure. Really think this is going to be the year where it clicks, and we do see an ace emerge in the form of Patrick Forbes. I also want to talk about newcomer Peter Michael, who had himself a start during the series as well, threw 4 2/3. In his start, allowed 2 hits, 1 run, and had 2 strikeouts. Also had a save in Game 1 and relief appearance in Game 6. So this is a guy who, for those who might not be familiar with him, kind of does a little bit of everything, has a history of being able to start, being able to relieve. We saw him close a game in the Pizza Bowl. I think that's going to be a really intriguing arm to follow as the season gets closer. And I think the big talking point here is you seemingly have 2/3 of your rotation already in the form of Patrick Forbes, likely on Fridays, and Brennan Cutts, Indiana State transfer, who's going to be pitching on Saturdays. But looking ahead to Sundays and midweeks, who might have the ball on those days? We saw a few new guys get some starts during the Pizza Bowl. One that I found really interesting was Jared Lessman, who pitched out of the pen last year. I personally am a big fan of his stuff. He got some length during the fall. Peter Michael got a start. Parker Detmer's got a start. Colton Hartman got a couple starts. Jack Brown got a start. Brandon Crawford got a start. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see which direction Dan pivots when it comes to who gets those 2 starts, and it might be by committee in the first few weeks until we get an answer. But I do feel pretty confident in Cutts and Forbes being the two guys on Saturdays and Fridays. And then looking ahead to just a couple of the stories at the plate during the Pizza Bowl, we've got newcomer Tag Davis, who you are going to hear a lot about for the next 3 years on this podcast. Freshman from Pennsylvania, launched 6 home runs during the fall. Does not hit anything cheap. Everything, 400 foot plus. It's incredible. He's an absolute freak of nature at the plate, and I cannot wait to see him continue to evolve and be, hopefully a star here at Louisville. Multiple multi-hit games from transfers, Kamayu Neighbors and Garrett Pike. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how those two kind of fit into things this season. And then overall, I think the teams seem to flash more power in the fall than they have in recent years, which I think is a good sign. The last couple of years, and you're looking at where things might have went wrong for the team, I think there is a lack of timely hitting and a lack of power hitting as well. And so being able to see some power numbers that are starting to tick up in the right direction, I think is a very good sign for this team.
Yeah, you touched on a lot there. A couple of things I want to go back to. One thing's Peter Michael. He's the first transfer that Louisville has taken since this whole transfer portal thing and everything has transpired from another Power 4 school. He came from Northwestern. And when he came in, his numbers, they weren't great. Anybody can look them up. They weren't. But I remember when you and I were talking about him, even with the numbers, and you're an analytics guy and you look at all this stuff that is way over my head, you were like, this guy's pretty good. And I was like, okay, what's the disconnect? And he's like, you have continued to say since he committed here that you think he will be a meaningful arm for this rotation this season. And he showed that in the Pizza Bowl. So when it comes to pitching, I'm just going to shut up and listen to you because you know a lot more about that than I do. Because you've been very high on him since we heard his name called when he committed to Louisville earlier this cycle. I think Cutts is interesting. He's going to be a big time arm. Like you said, he's going to be a weekend guy. You don't get a conference pitcher of the year from Missouri Valley come down here to Louisville if he's not going to be a weekend guy. So I think Cutts is definitely there. You're spot on with that. Other than that, I'm really excited about Colton Hartman, and we're going to talk about lineups and all that good stuff 1,000 times before the season starts, and we'll have podcasts talking about projected lineups and all that good stuff. But super excited about Hartman, the way he ended the season. Obviously, Parker Detmers taking that jump from freshman to sophomore season. Pumped to see what he does. But the storyline, like you said, it has to be Tag Davis. I mean, that guy is an absolute monster. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the last guys we took from Pennsylvania worked out pretty well for us in Brennan McKay. So I think if we can get him on that same track record as Brendan, it'll be a pretty good situation for both him and for Louisville. But 6 home runs in the fall for a true freshman. Anybody I've talked to just said the guy simply does not get cheated in the box. So, like you said, that's a name that we're going to continue to hear, even with the transfers that we have coming in. And Nate Early, who's probably going to spend some time over at first base. I mean, Tag Davis, you've got to find somewhere to put him. If it's DH, you've got to find first base innings for him. Whatever it is, if he's going to hit the ball like that, it's a guy that he just has to be in the lineup. It's kind of like Zion was last year. He comes in the second week of the season, and he was just an on-base machine, and he just didn't give the coaching staff an opportunity to take him out because you couldn't. And I think we're going to see something similar from Tag this year. Excited about Kamayu Neighbors and Garrett Pike. He talked about multi-hit games from Neighbors. He was, statistically speaking, this isn't just me, the most difficult player in Division I baseball to strike out last season. So just puts the ball in play, and that's what we need. I think last year there were times that we struggled with putting the ball in play and just the small things, moving a runner over, bunting a runner over. So having a guy like Kamayu Neighbors that can handle the bat, I think will be really important for this roster this upcoming season. So, I think we saw a lot of exciting things, and it's always fun, the Pizza Bowl, because they get to compete against one another. And when you're at Louisville and you're playing inter-squad scrimmages, you're playing against really good talent. So when you put up pretty solid numbers against your teammates, but your teammates are Louisville, they're ACC D1 baseball players, that's a good thing, and it gives us behind the microphone a lot of excitement to talk about the upcoming season.
Just want to make one more quick note here about Kamayu Neighbors. I don't want this to be lost in the shuffle. I don't know how many current college baseball players who are still playing were born in the 20th century, but Kamayu Neighbors is one of those guys. He does come in a little bit older, and for a team who does have a lot of young talent, I'm really excited to see what Neighbors brings, not only on the field but off the field too. I think that he comes in, and he's been around a time or two, so I think that he comes in and he's just primed to be a leader. That's what I see from him.
And speaking of Neighbors, and you talked about him and Pike kind of together. Garrett Pike, the transfer from Toledo, he was actually a Rawlings third-team All-American a season ago. I think he's a guy that you've got to remember his name. And the outfield is going to be absolutely stacked this year. But Garrett Pike is going to be a guy that we're gonna call his name a lot this season. So Louisville fans, if you haven't heard that name, get really excited about Garrett Pike, because I think that's a name that you're going to hear early and often once February 14th starts. So let's go ahead and talk about one thing that you and I have talked about quite a bit lately that has been a little concerning, maybe more than a little concerning, and that's the recent fury of decommits that Louisville has had. And I want to preface this by saying that recruiting classes are naturally going to have to get smaller because the NCAA is putting new limitations on roster sizes at 34, I believe.
Yes.
So, but schools can also give up to 34 scholarships as well. Now, that's not going to happen. Kendall Rogers, who's been all over this over at D1 Baseball, has talked about this at length, and he's like, even the top schools in the SEC, they don't have the money to do that. But schools can give up to 34 scholarships, but the roster sizes are going to max at 34. And that's a significant decrease. So where are those cuts going to come from? And a lot of it's going to be some incoming guys. So your recruiting classes can no longer be, 20 and 25 players. They just can't, because you can only have 34 total on your roster. So naturally they're going to have to shrink. But Louisville has lost some guys as of recently. I say some guys, a lot of guys as of recently that aren't the guys that you would tend to want to fall off on your class. Let me just run through some of these real quick. This is in the 2025 class, and these are ratings from Perfect Game. Jaden Foskey, I think I'm saying that right. I may be wrong, but he's the number 16 overall player in 2025. He's still uncommitted. Owen Jenkins, a local kid, he's from Lexington, number 46 in his class. He is now committed to Kentucky. These were all once commits to Louisville. Boston Kellner, number 67 player in the class, he decommitted. He's now pledged his commitment to Texas A&M. Ethan Moore, 94 overall in the class, he's now pledged his commitment as of recently to Tennessee. Caden Crowell, number 109 in the class, he is now committed to Notre Dame. Those are just the top 5. Then in 2026, there's a handful of guys as well. I say all that. Class sizes have to shrink 100%. They have to. Is this a concern? Does this tell us that the staff is going to say, okay, we're not going to put as much focus on high school recruiting. We're going to shift our focus to transfer portal, which we've started to see a little bit more. This last transfer portal class was significantly better than our prior classes. Or what do we make of this? What do you think?
I feel like, as simple as it sounds, that's such a loaded question. I'm not 100% sure what to make of it. Obviously, it's not good. These are guys that you're not wanting to lose. These are guys who, even with the roster cuts, they're not guys who you would cut anyways. So then it comes down to, okay, well, is it facilities? Is it NIL? The same things that we've been harping on for the last 2 or 3 years about. Maybe we're starting to fall behind a little bit. I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't know if I'm 100% concerned right now or not. I really am so torn about what to make of the situation, and I really don't want to read too much into it. I'm not in the offices at Jim Patterson. I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. I'm just speculating from the outside here. So I'm going to try and not overreact too much to these decommits, and see how the staff responds and the caliber of player that they do continue to recruit to U of L.
And I think that's a valid point. I've a lot of people have reached out to me, like, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? Another decommit, and it is what it is, right? But I think the biggest thing is you hit the nail on the head. How does the staff respond? Are we going to take those efforts and the resources and translate that to the transfer class that's going to be coming in after 2025? If that's the case, it's okay. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But I think if you're going to shift your focus from high school recruiting to not strictly, but mainly transfer portal, there's a path to success there. I mean, look at Jeff Braum. It's right here across campus. I mean, if you look at our recruiting class for this upcoming season for Jeff Braum, there's no one there. I mean, last I looked, they were ranked in like the 70s, and it may be worse than that now because I know they've had some decommits as well. So, but he's doing just fine because he's hitting the transfer portal as well as anybody in the country. So if the focus is going to be shifted from high school recruiting to we're going to go all in on transfer portal, my concern is very minimal because I'd rather chase guys that are proven, that have won, that have been successful, that are older, they're more mature, they're leaders. Like I think that is there's a big value on that Louisville could attract and bring into this program to get us to the next step. And having 18-year-olds versus having 20-year-olds that have played Division I baseball for 2 years, that's enticing. And I think that is that would definitely make me be less concerned about losing decommits if we're going to shift our focus.
No, I 100% agree with that, and I don't think that was the intention. Like we've said, these are guys that you would not want to lose. You're not going to cut these guys anyways. No. So I don't think that the intention was to tell these guys, hey, we're going to focus on transfer portal recruiting now. But with these guys backing out, and you're probably going to lose a few more from these classes, probably the lower end guys who are currently on that list. Now it kind of forces your hand a little bit, and you say, okay, now I have to go out and recruit the portal. So I do think that is the direction that the team is currently going in.
Well, and I think there's money wise, it makes a lot of sense. It's like, okay, I'm going to pay all these. I don't know numbers. I'm not going to act like I do, but you're going to pay a lot of money to these freshmen to get them to campus. Some of them are going to play, some of them aren't going to play, but you're going to pay them to sit the bench. I'd rather you not pay them to sit the bench. I'd rather you take that money and use those resources towards transfers that are going to come in and they're going to play immediately. So, and maybe that's the mindset. And if that's the mindset, I'm all for it. I could 100% get behind, this coaching staff just changing that mindset to, okay, we're not going to rely heavily on high school recruits as much. We're going to kind of shift our focus and have a mix of high school and transfer guys. And we'll see. I think the next portal cycle will tell us, I think we'll answer that question exactly.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So gonna move ahead now to what Matt always says is my favorite time of the night, and time for a little Pro Ball update. And very exciting Pro Bowl update. I'm sure that many of you already know by now, but Will Smith, for the second time in his major league career, is a World Series champion, and super excited for Will. There's nobody more deserving. He got to sign a massive contract this year. He's in LA long term, middle of the season, named an All Star. He plays in the All Star game, and finishes off his year by winning a World Series. And not only that, but welcoming his second kid to the world. Will and his wife, Kara, just had their second baby daughter. So congrats to Will and his wife. And there's nobody who is riding higher than him right now, for sure. Then just a couple more quick notes. Chad Green for the Blue Jays has been named a finalist for the AL Comeback Player of the Year award. So super happy for Chad. His rebound from Tommy John has been incredible. He had a great year up in Toronto. And then a number of free agents who are currently available to sign with anybody. We've got Adam Duvall, Nick Solak, Josh Rogers, Devin Mann, Nick Birdie, Brendan McKay, Adam Wolf, Riley Thompson, and Matt Cook are all currently free agents. And Justin Levy has announced his retirement from professional baseball. Levy, an undrafted free agent signed by Seattle in 2020. Played last season with the Florence Freedom of the Independent Frontier League and is now retired from baseball. So congratulations to Justin on a great career. It's been fun to follow your career, and while we're sad to see you go, we're excited to see what's next for you.
No, 100%. Every time you text me one of the retirement tweets or tell me that somebody's retiring, it's kind of sad because we've watched them all the way from their time at Louisville through their pro ball career. So it's kind of sad to see it come to a close, but it's also good to see where they go from there. And we were talking a minute ago, and anytime I have something that I'm going to say about anybody in pro ball, I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna chip in. I'm gonna say this. Like you just take it away from me because that's what you do, because you know so much and I know so little about pro ball. But I don't know if we've talked about this yet, and maybe we have. But Cade McClure, have we talked about him coaching at Kent State?
That was literally going to be the next words out of my mouth. You take the floor.
So Cade McClure, he obviously retired. Hung up the cleats from playing, and he is now coaching at Kent State. And not only is he at Kent State, Zeke Pinkham, who played at U of L, he has been coaching at Georgia Tech for the last handful of years. He has joined McClure on the staff at Kent State, so they're both up there now. So I'm going to be cheering for one, Louisville this year, and two, I'll be watching the Golden Flashes because I'm super excited to see what those two can do with that program and as they progress into their coaching careers.
You got any more alumni updates?
I don't. That's all I got.
You beat me on one. This is weird. This is a weird feeling.
Yeah. How do you feel right now?
I'm a little stunned. I'm not gonna lie.
But no, I think Cade. We've had him on here before, and just talking to Cade, even not on here, really excited for him. I think he's going to do really, really good things as a coach. I think he'd been doing some lessons and whatnot up in Pittsburgh, anyways, beforehand, if I'm not mistaken. So I think he'll do very well, and it's got to be really cool to be coaching alongside another guy that played the same school as you with Pinkham. So I think they're going to do really well at Kent State, and they also wear some really cool jerseys up there. So I've had my eye on those. So don't be surprised if I bust out the podcast one time wearing a Kent State Golden Flashes jersey. All right. Well, I know it's been a long time since we've been on here, and we kind of had a lot to cover tonight. But we're going to go ahead and have Zion Rose join us and catch up with him. Like I said, we're going to kind of talk about his last season. He had a stellar 2024 campaign as a freshman, brought a lot of energy to this team. He was kind of Mr. Reliable for Coach McDonald, made the shift from catcher to outfield, and it looks like going forward he is going to remain in the outfield, and which I touched on a little bit earlier. This is a loaded outfield to be in. So but super excited to see Zion in his sophomore year and go ahead and have him hop on and catch up and see how life has been treating him lately. And we are now joined by Zion Rose. Zion, I know it's a busy time for you all with school and baseball and everything going on. So I appreciate you taking some of your time this evening to chat with Aaron and I and kind of catch up on what's been going on since the end of your freshman season last year.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Two things I do want to cover before we kind of get into this. You are kind of in an exclusive group right now. I don't know if you know this, but since we've been doing this podcast, you are now the first person that has actually ever been on our podcast twice. So Aaron and I were talking the other day about, kind of talking about getting ready for the podcast, and Aaron brought it up. He's like, wait a minute. He's like, we've never had anybody on twice before. So yeah, you're the first person that's ever been on twice. So we appreciate that.
Appreciate you.
And then secondly, last year, after you were on, I reached back out to you and we kind of talked, because I told you I was going to let you kind of talk about a family business of yours and kind of plug that. And I completely slipped over it last year. So I want to apologize. And I want to give you time to kind of give you the floor and kind of just let you talk about that and kind of tell our fans what your family's been up to and what you all do.
Yeah. So back in 2020 during COVID, my family, mainly my father, came up with this great idea. It's called Nature's Dessert with 2 Z's. It's an all-natural shea butter. He created it because my brother, he had bad eczema and all the lotions wouldn't work for him. So he made his own. And yeah, it's just a really good product. Got all natural shea butter, coconut oil, jojoba oil, avocado oil. And then we also add like an essential oil to like give it its smell. We got 13 different scents. This is my favorite one, Clean Conscious. I got this one right here, Herbal Butter. And yeah, it's just amazing. All the scents are really nice. We got these sizes, which are 8 ounces, and then we got a travel size 4 ounces if you want to. 3.4 ounces, so you could put it in your bag and stuff like that when you go over flights. But yeah, the only thing I recommend is to not leave it in the sun. Don't leave it in your car because it will melt.
That's good to know. And I love the story where you had somebody in your family that had an issue and they couldn't find a lotion or something that would kind of help them. And I've got a little kid myself, a 4-year-old, and I know how sensitive their skin is. So hearing that your family, instead of just looking around, they were just like, we're going to do it ourselves. So I think that's a pretty cool story.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and hop into kind of some questions and talk about maybe your past last year, your freshman season, how you earned all ACC freshman honors, 2024 perfect game freshman All-American, and then you were invited to the USA Collegiate National Team Trials, which we'll talk a little bit about here in just a little bit. So kind of wrapping all that up, what has your freshman year and summer been like at Louisville, and how's that adjustment been going from IMG Academy to playing Division I baseball at the University of Louisville?
Yeah, it was amazing, honestly. It was a lot of growing and development that I went through. I think going into it, I knew I wasn't going to be given anything, and they definitely didn't give me anything. It was, hard-nosed. People, I wouldn't say people, but they're hard on me just because of going to IMG and, keeping me humble, not allowing me to have a big head, which I'm very grateful for. But, yeah, that first summer and fall felt forever. It was a long time. It was a lot of struggles. But at the end of it, they gave me things to work on. And I just went home and I grinded like the whole winter break, like this point right now, up into the season. Felt like I had a good chance to play. And I got my chance a little bit, like 5 games in, and didn't come out since that. And yeah, it was just, honestly, I tell a lot of people this. I kind of felt like it was easier to play in college because, man, the strike zones are smaller, the umpires are better. the pitching's better, so they're going to put it on the plate. All you got to do is make contact with it. So, yeah, we got more strength using a metal bat. It was just fun banging balls all, season. So, but I think the biggest thing for me that I learned was how to manage my body, because it was the first long season, especially with the summer. How to eat right, sleep right, all those things like rehab, mentally trying to stay prepared for all the games back to back, and kind of just learning the game, like the situations, like man on second, they're going to throw you breaking balls, trying to make you roll over and, keep the guy at second, and when to go oppo, what pitches to take and things like that. So I think that's what Louisville coaching staff, Coach Braves, Snyder, Mack has done a great job at just, teaching me the small things and, how to give me an advantage when I'm in the box.
I think you bring up a really good point when you were talking about, how to eat and how to sleep. A lot of people, probably including myself, we don't think about, that part of it and the mental component that goes into, being a D1 athlete that I don't want to say you don't have to worry about in high school, but it's not as big because, it's not 24/7. It's not everything you do all day, every day. Where in college it is. And it doesn't stop. It's 7 days a week. So I think that's a really good point that you bring up, that a lot of people, normal fans, like I said, including myself, really just don't think of. So I think that's a really important piece of it, that going into your season is really one of the biggest adjustments to make.
Yeah, for sure. You got to take care of your temple. Body's temple.
I love the mentality, first of all, and second of all, I love the comment of college baseball is easier. You got to be the only person, I think, I've heard say that college baseball came a little bit easier when the games came to playing. So love that mentality right there, and you kind of touched on it already. But kind of what was the biggest difference between your first fall and now that you finish up your second? Did you find it any easier now that you were kind of in the routine? Do you find yourself stepping into a leadership role at all with the younger guys?
Yeah, it's weird now. Like I said, last fall felt forever. This one, I feel like was too fast. But I knew coming in I'd have a leadership role just because of the year I had last year. And I kind of I wanted to, everything that went wrong last year over the summer, I was just thinking the whole summer, like, how can we make this right? Like, what could we have done better, to make the playoffs or to win the ACC championship or to win those one-run games and things like that. And luckily for me and for our team, like, I wasn't the only one that came in, looking to be a leader. We had a fired up freshman group, all the returners, and some of the transfers, like the older kids. We got some great leaders outside of myself, and we all just came together, and like we're moving really nice right now. Like everything's looking good.
Yeah, that's really good to hear, because I know, anytime you start piecing together, transfer rosters, and this isn't just Louisville baseball, this is Louisville basketball, this is every program across the country in any sport. When you start piecing these, transfers and then guys that stick with the program and move up to their next season, it's just, the biggest thing is how are they going to mesh together? So to hear that you've got leaders that are stepping up from internal, but also bringing leaders externally that transferred in, that I think that's what this program probably need at this point in time to get over those one-run games like you talked about, and to get this team back to the NCAA tournament where it belongs.
No, for sure.
And I kind of touched on this a second ago, talking about playing for the U.S. collegiate national team. What was that experience like? Being able to wear USA across your chest against some of the best players and play for some of the best coaches in the country, and also play alongside two of your teammates and Patrick Forbes and Tucker Biven. Just talk us through that experience. How cool was that?
Yeah, it was amazing. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play with Tuck and Forbes. They were on the older team, but like we played against them, and it was just dope seeing like all the best players and like their mannerisms and how we're like and how we're different and the things they're thinking. Because I mean, there's always something to learn in baseball. Like everybody has so much knowledge in this game, and that was just a learning experience for me, honestly. Just learning from the guys who have power, who have speed, who are really good at defense, like learning what they do to do those things. And the coaches there, like you said, were amazing. We had some good practices. Um, yeah, that was a surreal experience, especially because we played. It was us versus the older team on on July 4th. And after the game, we watched the fireworks, and like even during the game, there was fireworks going off, and it was like a Sandlot game. Like it was super dope.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, not only did you compete for Team USA, but you were kind of all over the country too. You spent part of your summer up in the Cape. You played with Falmouth for a little bit before you went to Team USA. What was that experience like in the Cape? I know that you didn't spend the entire summer there, but that brief experience that you did get playing, that top level of summer college ball, what was that experience like? And then when you put that together with your time with Team USA, what do you think you can carry into the fall and the spring seasons from this past summer?
Yeah, the Cape was amazing. I mean, in Falmouth especially, we got was that Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard right across from us. Uh, that place is unreal. I'm not gonna lie. It's like it don't even seem real. You got houses on the beach. I mean, nice days every day. Uh, really chill people. Uh, yeah, it's just an amazing community out there. And like you said, the competition was no joke. Get that wood bat. You gotta catch the ball out front with the wood bat. So I mean, it was nice though. Just seeing all the different types of competition. The pitching was amazing. Um, I think my biggest takeaway from that was again just the mental aspect. Trying to stay mentally conditioned and strong through it all because it's so many games and it's like the same thing going in. Your body's tired. You try and get through it. You try and get those knocks. Staying focused on the situations and things like that. So I think for sure that's why I finished out that whole summer there because I know, I mean, if I want to be in the big leagues playing 163 games, I got to be able to get through 70. So I definitely think that's going to have me more prepared for our Louisville season.
And one of the things that Aaron and I talk about, kind of our baseball bucket list, one of them is to go up to Cape Cod and catch some games one summer. So if we do that, we'll hit you up and see where we need to go in Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard up there because I've never heard anybody say anything bad about it.
Oh my God! Please let me know. It's like crazy. Yeah.
So we kind of touched on going into this next season and you taking a leadership role on. Now that you spent some time with the 2025 team, maybe name drop a couple of guys, maybe transfers, freshmen, maybe a little bit of both, that you think are going to make an immediate impact this year that fans may or may not know about.
Yeah. Off the top, Tank Davis. It's crazy. Like, he got more juice than a lot of people I've seen. Like, playing against, he might have the most juice I've ever seen. He just makes contact. If he makes contact, it's going out. It's going out. So, him, Jack Brown on the side, got a sinker up to 94, 95 maybe. Yeah, he's a dog. I mean, super Greek god build, just super focused. Who else do we have? Kamayu, he's a transfer. Super good leader. He's just very verbal on the field. Contact guy, really good glove. B Hot Byram. He's a transfer from Marist. Got really good power and contact, and got a good glove. And then Jake Monroe, third baseman. He's really nice. Hit 25 bombs in JUCO last year at John Hay. Nate Early, first baseman. He got juice. I mean, it's a long list. We got a lot of guys that are looking really good for this season.
It's exciting to have all those, so many new faces coming in. I know Aaron and I are pumped about it. We've been, following the guys around from where they used to be, but seeing them play in red and black it'll hit a little bit different when they step on the field next February.
I'm excited.
So, there's a lot of changes happening in college athletics right now, especially college baseball. Roster size shrinking a little bit here soon. Transfer portal has been off the charts crazy. NIL has been exploding over the last couple of years. As a player, just how do you feel about all the changes? What are some of the ways that you maybe been able to benefit? And then do you see any negatives from the current state of the game?
From the NIL perspective, I just like going out and playing baseball. So I have my advisor and my father deal with all that. So I don't even have to. That's not a stress factor I got to worry about. The transfer portal, it's weird. I like it because, of course, if a player can't play somewhere and wants to play, you got to go. But if a player's sole, reasoning for getting in the portal is to get money, then, that sucks because now it's one of your teams. It's not building teams, building a culture. And like a coach can't develop a player if they're getting it 1 year, they're coming out the portal. It sucks, honestly, because now the freshmen, especially with the roster cut, you got an even tougher chance of making a team. So, I just feel for that. I feel bad for people, especially I know commits changing schools because of money, and you don't even know if you could get it. Like you said, they're about to change the NIL thing too soon. So it's just a lot of stuff that's happening, but I try not to think about it too much. I just go out and play.
It's super refreshing for you to say that because, as a young athlete in college, it seems like right now everybody's just chasing that dollar. And if you're to say, that's not a stressor, you don't worry about that. You just want to play baseball. That's why you're here. You're here to play baseball and to get better. So I think having people in the program like you that are there to play baseball, they want to develop and they want to get to the next stage. That's what it's all about. So the fact that there's still people around that's what they're looking for. It's really good to hear because you get on Twitter and you'll see the complete opposite of that. You don't see anybody that's just wanting to better themselves. They just want $1. So kudos to you and for doing that and sticking with the program. Which that kind of leads to my next question is, and you've kind of touched on this, but if there's anything else you want to add, with the landscape that's going on in college baseball and the money that's being thrown around, you obviously stuck with Dan McDonnell in the program here that he's built at Louisville. What was it? Why did Zion Rose choose to come back to Louisville for another year?
Yeah, I just thought we had a good sophomore or freshman group, my freshman. And we had been talking about it all last year. And I had told Coach McDonald, if you put the right guys with me, we're going to win. And it was just, I knew what it took, especially after going through it. I knew the mistakes that we made. And, I just wanted a chance at changing it. And, he always says, leave the jersey better than you came in. So we want, when we leave, we want Louisville to be, better than what it is. So kind of, I guess you could say from a legacy standpoint and things like that, riding it out.
I think
And
that's
the coaches are amazing here too. I mean, Coach Snyder, Rabes, and Matt. That's the best trio you could get.
yeah. No, 100%. And, you talked about building a legacy. I think that's something that, unfortunately, we're not going to see much anymore in college athletics because people are, they're just transferring year after year after year. And there's not going to be that legacy that someone stays at a program, for 3 or 4 years long term and has that ability to build a legacy because they're just on to the next thing. So yeah, I think you're spot on.
So good timing for us to record tonight because the schedule was just released today. So I'm not sure if you've gotten a chance to look at it yet, but if you have, what are your thoughts on the schedule? And then you have any date in particular that you have circled or a new city that you're excited to go travel to?
Yeah, it's a very exciting season we got going. Valentine's Day, baby. February 14th. It don't get no better. Starting off with SEC school, seeing their best Friday night guy. So I'm very excited for that. Yeah, this season's gonna be really good. We got a lot of competition: UNC, FSU, Virginia, BT, like all the. I'm sorry, I'm trying to swipe out of these things. Okay, but yeah, we got a lot of good matches at home. Wake Forest at home, so we gotta get the people out.
I will say when you said we open with the SEC school this year, I was like, okay, one of us doesn't know what they're talking about, and it's me because Texas going to the SEC is still throwing me off. Every time I see the SEC logo on their jersey, I'm like, that just doesn't look right. So when you said that, I had to do a double take. I was like, Texas is in the SEC. So, but yeah, I think that'll be fun. I was talking to my wife not too long ago, and I was like, hey, I know it's a ways away, but I want to go ahead and start planning Valentine's Day. And little did she know I had an ulterior motive because I wanted to make our way down there. So I think we're going to try to make the trip down. So we're going to try to head down. She's got a work trip that week in Texas.
Wow.
And she was going to go by herself. And I was like, I want to go with you.
Right.
So, so we're gonna. I don't know yet. We're trying to work out the logistics of it with the kid and all that good stuff. So we're gonna try to make it down and cheer y'all on down there that weekend of Valentine's Day. So I can't think of a better way to spend Valentine's Day to watch you all open up the season against Texas this year.
I like it.
Well, Zion, that's all we got for you tonight. I really appreciate you coming on. I know, like I said, you're busy this time of the year. I think every time of the year is busy for you. Baseball never stops. But I just appreciate you hopping on, talking to us a little bit tonight about the upcoming season. Super pumped about it. Like you said, I love the roster we've got. And we'll be out there at 3rd and Central this year cheering y'all on.
Yo, I appreciate y'all.
All right. Thanks, Zion.
Thanks, Zion.
Once again, we want to thank Zion Rose for coming on tonight and joining us. Like I said, these guys are super busy, and for them to come on and spend a little bit of their evening with us and talk to two guys like us that just sit behind a microphone, we really appreciate them. And without guys like Zion and without the coaches that have been on and without the former players that have been here, it makes this a lot more difficult. So we truly do appreciate the time that they give to us to deliver as much content we can to the fans and to the listeners. So to the listeners, we appreciate you all. If you could do us a favor, hop on wherever you're listening, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're hearing this, like us, subscribe us, rate us. We appreciate that. That goes a long way. We're going to continue to start recording a little bit more through the winter months to do our Offseason Diamond Dialogues Season 2 like we did last year. So we'll try to get some more former players, some more current players, and just give you all a deeper dive and kind of an inside scoop of the program, what's going on, and just be able to hear these guys' stories. So we'll be doing that in the coming months. You'll hear plenty of us. But in the meantime, before we get back behind the mic, Aaron, give your little shameless plug and let everybody know where they can find you.
Yep, you can follow me on Twitter, my personal at Aaron Turner BSB. or you can go follow all the alumni updates at Louisville Baseball Alumni Report.
And I will now be contributing to the university or the Louisville Baseball Alumni Report since I beat Aaron tonight to something. So he has to give me his username and password as soon as his podcast ends so I can start contributing. But no, you can find me on Twitter at Matt Sefcovic and give us a follow on our podcast page at Third Central Pod. And until next time, in the words of Sean Moth, we will see you at the ballpark.